if you are not trained and authorized to do so. And this is also one of those things. It would be very easy to sleep. So, okay, maybe I can just take a lift and move this couple of meters. It doesn't matter. That simply is not acceptable. And the risks are very real. So we need to really ensure that we are following, having the right PPE as well. And in every occasion as possible, avoid or minimize the exposure. I mean, in general, chemicals are not good for your health. Full stop. And you really should try to avoid and minimize the exposure to that. And when starting any of the chemical tasks, we need to really do the risk assessment to know what could happen if something goes wrong. I mean, we have plenty of substances which are reactive, which can, if you do it in an improper way, they can be harmful or dangerous. And that's the reason why we really need to know what are the risks and what are the actions we need to take to ensure that the worst case scenario never happens in those. And then fire safety. And first, of course, the obvious one is identifying all potential ignition sources. And let's remember, there are plenty. I mean, there's a picture of welding over there, but there are plenty of ignition sources in our machines, whether it's with electric circuits, whether it's with engines, whether it's with brakes, whether it's with hydraulics. So we need to be careful of that one. And also, additional point, extremely important, whenever we are doing any type of hot work, we really need to ensure it's safe to do so. I mean, welding next to something that is flammable, things like that, I mean, those are not acceptable. Really, we need to assess the risk and ensure also we have the permits to do that work. Very important point also, prior to starting to work and doing the fire check, is to check that the extinguishers are actually checked and audited, because fundamentally, you don't want to be noticing that at the time when you pick up the extinguisher and notice that this is of not use. So
a bit before.
Exactly. Yeah. And of course, finally, this is something that I want to repeat also with the mechanical hazards, is that we have plenty of fire detection mechanisms and alarms in place. And there is no acceptable reason to turn those off, because that is one of the biggest sources of risks. Or if they need to be turned off, that needs to be done then in an extremely managed way, and it needs to be clearly documented, the reasons understood for that one. And that is because those are the first lines of fire safety for us anyway. Lifting operation, as Ed was saying, this is an area which is where we have still quite a lot of work to be done. And if I'm looking at the practical life also, what I have seen at some of our facilities is that we sometimes take a bit too relaxed stance on looking into if a lifting machine has a certain load, we will not exceed that load. It is planned to operate safely only within that load. And all lifting must also be planned and performed by competent and certified people. And there's also the other part of this one, which is more of the practical lifting, which is that even when we are moving relatively small components out there in the factory, I think we have had a couple of LTIs also this year, which are purely a result of the fact that we have not taken the trouble of finding, for example, the right carriage or the right tool to move a part, but rather decided to lift by hand for, let's say, 5 or 10 meters, and then got a different kind of the back problems. And there's really no excuse when that happened. That's simply not acceptable, full stop. And also very important is that whenever something is suspended, a load is suspended and hanging out there, there are never people at the risk areas, whether it's under it or close by it. These can be extremely dangerous, and you also need to remember that when having a suspended load, it can actually move quite a lot when it's moving back and forth. The safety area is just not under the lifting machine, but it actually goes to a wider area. And in addition to that one, the line of fire hazard, so kind of to ensure that there are no risks when you are doing any kind of the movement with the lift, is extremely important, because this is once again an area where very easily something can go wrong. And almost well, everybody knows if you walk around your hall with a 2-meter stick on your shoulder,